In this video, let's have a look at the numerical data types. Let's say I assign n1 equals to 100. We know that n1 is an int, so you can type n1 and it says int. However, int is not the only numerical data type that is available. I can also type here n1 equals to 100 dot. The presence of a dot makes it as a float. If I say type n1, it says float. In the older version of Python, that is Python 2.x, there was a data type called long, which represented a bigger integer value. In Python 3, int and long are combined to the same int data type, which means I can assign a huge value and still get away with that. For example, I'm giving a very big number over here, and that's still a valid number, which means I can still work with this in arithmetic operations. For example, I can say n1 into 10, I'll get a bigger number. I can also type n1 square, and that's a bigger number too. And the limit of how big this number can go, you can only test by typing n1 star star, let's say 1 2 3 4, and this is going to be a very huge number. So what I'll do is I'll reduce this to 12. So it is like this whole number raised to the power of 12, which itself happens to be a big number. I can go on and then check for a bigger number, and you can see that it still works. However, if you're working with a float data type, like for example n1 equals to say 12.34, this is automatically considered as float, and you can see dir n1 has a different set of functionalities or attributes compared to that of integers. When you're working with numbers, especially integers, the division operator is a little peculiar. For example, if I say n1 equals to 12, and I can say n1 divided by 10, it says 1.2. But if I wanted only the integer part of this, such as for example the quotient of division, not the actual floating point number, you may have to use double slash and then you get this one. For example, 22 by 7 would show you something like this. But if I say 22 by 7 with a double slash, we will get 3 because that's the quotient. You can also get the remainder. So by using the percentage symbol, which happens to be 1. And as we have already seen, the double star represents power operator. For example, this is equivalent to 2 to the power 10. I don't have to give spaces over there. I can as well give like this. That's perfectly all right. And we have the other common operators like plus, minus, star, slash for add, subtract, multiplication, and division. One very important point you may have to keep in mind when you are working with numericals is that you cannot accept using the input, something like enter a number. The user may enter a number like 222 in this case, but if I say type of n1, it is nothing but str. So if you try to say n1 plus, say for example 100, assuming that the result is supposed to be 322, you will be wrong, and you can see that it gives me an error saying that you can only concatenate str, not int. The word concatenate corresponds to adding up of two strings like Vinod plus Kumar, so which becomes Vinod Kumar eventually, right? So in this case, this returns an str. So n1 is an str. Str plus can only be another str. It cannot be an int. But I wanted an int in the first place here. Now this cannot be done with the help of input, but what we can do is we can convert the return value of the input function, which happens to be an str, into an int before storing. And that is done by using the int constructor. So I can say here n1 equals to int, and then I can type here input, enter a number, and close the bracket twice. So first you will see that the input is being executed, which is going to present a message to the user, enter a number. The user will have to enter a number. The user is free to enter whatever he or she wants to enter, but let's assume that the user wants to enter a number, and that number is a string or an str that is passed as an argument to the int constructor, meaning it is going to construct an object of int type. Hence, the result, whatever that we give, is going to be an int. So now n1 plus 100 will have no problem, because by the time we have assigned to n1, it has been converted into an int. So int plus int is absolutely no problem. So we may have to keep this in mind, that every time we accept a numerical value, we better pass it on to the int constructor and then we assign that to a variable. Alternately, we can also accept first like this, and then we can say n1 equals to int of n1, because we know at this point in time n1 is in str. We convert that into an int, reassign the same thing back to n1. This is all possible because Python has dynamic data types for variables.